Hello and welcome to Michigan Farm Bureau's Bee Agriculture Career Conversations. We're excited that you have joined us today for the Bee the Story focus. So we're looking at how do you take somebody who's interested in communication and visual design, and how do you help share the story of agriculture as a career in your next steps? And so we have three amazing panelists with us here today. My name is Katie Eisenberger, and I work with our high school and collegiate programs. Some of you may have participated in our discussion meets, have volunteered in Project Reds or Ag in the Classrooms, and so we're excited that you're here with us today. As we jump in, just a reminder for those that are watching for the first time, this is part of a 9-part series of Bee Agriculture Career Conversations. And so if you haven't checked out one of the other ones, make sure that when you're done watching this one, you check out those conversations as well. You are muted, but you can interact with our participants or our panelists by just throwing a question into our question and answer pod. So feel free to, if you do have a question, throw that in there and then I'll make sure to get that answered by our panelists. So let's jump in and meet who we have here today. And so guys, thanks for being with us. I appreciate you guys taking time to be here today and share with the students, whether they're high school students, college students, or just somebody that says, man, maybe there's a career path here in the Bee the Story conversation. So let's start with you, Aaron. Kind of give us who you are, where you're from, what you do, and just kind of a bird's eye view of what you get to do on a daily basis.
Sure. Hi, my name is Aaron Boak. I'm a video producer with Michigan Farm Bureau. I've been with the company for about 16 years. I grew up actually in a very rural area of Fowler, not Fowlerville. Most people get that mixed up, but Fowler. We had 1,200 people. So I was around farming, but I was never really in the agriculture lifestyle. We did have some sweet corn and things like that as a market, but anyways, went to Lansing Community College, got a degree in media technology, and just kind of picked up the video camera and absolutely fell in love with it, and been shooting video ever since.
Hi guys, my name is Bridget Moore and I am the Industry Relations Specialist at United Dairy Industry of Michigan. So in my role, I get to communicate with our Michigan dairy farmers on what we're doing with their checkoff investment and help with all of our different programs. So from schools, food banks, and just working at consumer events to share why dairy is nutritious and why they should be consuming it and what we do on farms and why. So I get to work with really amazing dairy farmers across the state. I grew up in Everett, Michigan, so also a very small town, and I grew up on a dairy farm, so dairy's kind of always been a part of who I am and in my blood. But I didn't always start out in promotion, so it's been a fun journey to start out. I actually started out as a field representative, so really science and math focused and on farm, hands-on on the farm, and then transitioned into promotion. It's been really fun. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks. And Mike, go ahead.
Okay. I am Mike Wenz. I am the president of Zentex Media Group and Exhibit Farm. My background goes way back. I've been in the graphics type of field for the last 30 plus years. And grew up in a small town. I did not grow up on a farm. I can say our building sits in the middle of a cornfield, though. And the last few years, we've learned and researched a lot about farming and the needs of the agricultural community when it entails the marketing and creation of educational type of exhibits. And as far as my day-to-day, I deal with being the president of the company. I get to deal with a lot of different things, from making tough decisions to having input in social media and maybe a new product that we roll out with, but I have an amazing team that I lean on for all that. So, I can help in any way, telling you about all the different career paths that we have within our company, that are available out there in the field. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for being here today. I appreciate that. So a couple of questions that we had sent you to prep you. I'm trying to really grasp what you do, whether it's a daily task or you do just regularly. So sometimes that's daily, sometimes it's seasonally. or it's based on a project. And so curious if you could share those 2 or 3 tasks that would really highlight what you do in your area with the rest of the panel. We'll start with Aaron.
Yeah, so a couple tasks. A lot of it is actually scheduling, and we work around farmers' times and their schedules. So trying to, if we have multiple shoots, we try to schedule those appropriately. So you have to try to find out when they're available. But the biggest thing is, I kind of look at it as in 2 parts. We go out and we film. So we usually get interviews with whoever we're talking with, and we shoot a lot of footage that's called B-roll, which we put over top of the interview to kind of, I call it eye candy, to kind of spice it up a little bit. Keep the video interesting. And then the next process is the editing, where we bunker down and we sit at a computer and we take all the footage that we gathered and we tell a story with what we have. Typically, as a video producer, before you even go out on your shoot, you talk with the person you're going to interview, and you get to know their story and get to know what kind of person they are. So before you even go out there, you kind of have an idea of what you're going to shoot. You're going to have the idea of the questions you're going to ask. And you want to lay out that before you even go out to shoot that video, so you have an idea of what that piece is going to look like, and you kind of have a shot list of what you're exactly going to want to create that story, to tell their story, and then share it with people.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. A follow-up question for that. So when you're in your studio, are you working, like what kind of programs are you working with, and what does that entail?
Sure. So we use with that Farm Bureau, we use a program called Final Cut. It's an Apple product. We use Macintosh, Apple computers. There are a few more out there, but we've been working with Apple and with Final Cut for a really long time. It works for our workflow. And a lot of the videos that we produce, they either go on YouTube or Vimeo as well. And that's how and then also Facebook. I mean, as we know, social media and videos have skyrocketed with that. So the end result is usually Facebook, and that's where we get lots of our traffic from, all the shares and everything like that.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you for sharing that, Aaron. Bridget, what are some of your main tasks that you get to do on regularly?
Yeah, so I get a fun role of getting farmers to events. So kind of what Aaron just shared, working on farmer schedules. I also do that. So I might ask 10 farmers to come to an event and get 2, and I'm stoked for that because farmers are so busy. So I do that probably almost on a daily basis. And then I do get to put together 2 newsletters per year, if not more, just to update on some of the really cool things that we're doing. And then also an annual report. So that's not my favorite thing to put together, but I know that farmers appreciate it. And so that's a little bit on what I get to do, but overall is just really trying to make sure that on a daily basis, our dairy message is getting sent out properly, whether that's on our social media channels or for creating nutritional handouts that, you know, we send to dietitians or to dentists, and just to make sure that farmers' voices are getting heard and that they do care for their animals.
Great, thank you. And Mike, go ahead.
Well, my day is probably a little bit different than most, but you know, I get involved in a lot of different aspects of the business. I can tell you when at 7, I have a great assistant that at 7 in the morning, I have a list that's sent to me every morning. And so she keeps me on the schedule of who I'm meeting with and whatnot. A lot of times my life is planned in 20-minute increments, but the great thing about that is I get to deal with all sorts of different things. And, you know, so a lot of days I'm having meetings with our designers or our design director, making decisions on, let's say, give you for instance, we have a big project coming up with a mobile marketing unit for Virginia State University. So we're making a lot of decisions on that as far as design and whatnot. And of course, you know, on the business side of things, I'm dealing with financial aspects of it as well. That's probably not my most favorite, is accounting, taxes, and dealing with government. But we have fabricators that I deal with on a daily basis. So a lot of times when people ask what I do, I usually say I'm a solutions provider to my people and our clients mainly. So it's kind of more so keeping all the balls in the air, making sure people are staying on task. And then I'm responsible for sales as well. So I'm heavily involved with meeting with our sales team on a regular basis and making sure we're hitting numbers and that sort of thing. So it really a vast, I can't pinpoint. It's morphed into this where my background is more in graphic design. And, when you start a business, it morphs into a lot of different areas, of course. And so I don't design as much anymore. I still have a lot of input, but one of the reasons why I got into this business is the creativity part and doing something different every day.
Awesome. And all of you, talked about how you have to connect with people in order to help share the message and connect with the people to use your skills to tell their story in the best way, in the best light possible. And I think that's pretty awesome. And it just lines up right with the focus that we have today. And so as we look at what your training or your education would have been, kind of your path on how you got here, some of you touched on it a little bit, but as students are watching, what can they kind of keep in mind as maybe their potential next steps? Or if you kind of completely took a 180, what did that process look like for you? So like training, education, formal, informal, as they're looking at next steps. Aaron, you want to share your process?
Sure. So as crazy as it sounds, I was really into music growing up. So originally I wanted to be a DJ, which is kind of funny. But then I realized the hours they work and the pay that they get, unless you're some big morning person, you get paid some good money. But during that time, I did have to take some video classes, and I picked up the camera and absolutely that was my calling. I fell in love with it. So that's the direction I went. During college, I went to Lansing Community College. There's quite a few classes that they direct you to. You have to do some script copywriting classes. You have to do lighting, just general camera classes and all the techniques and things like that, the history and all that. And really, I think it's important to take those classes, but with video, a lot of it's just get a camera and go out and shoot and be creative. That's where you really learn with that. That's kind of how I picked it up. I started filming a few of my friends' weddings, and actually started my own little wedding company. I film 7-8 weddings a year. And then during the day, weekdays, I get to be at the farms filming agricultural stuff, which is pretty great. So it's a lot of just getting out and shooting. And that's really, you just continue to learn, and technology is constantly changing as well. And that's difficult to keep up with. You get a new camera and you think it's the best, and a year later they have something new and you're like, how is there anything better than what I had before? And so you buy it, and then a year later something else comes out. So you're constantly keeping up with technology, which I'm sure Mike is working with that as well in his line. But yeah, it's just those are a lot of the courses, and you just continue to grow as you continue to go out and shoot and work with people.
So in my role, so I did definitely did a big turn. So, I still get to work with farmers, which is my favorite thing to do. But went from being on farms, throwing on my muck boots every day, to dressing up and having to fix my hair in an office. So honestly, I think just for me, that's been super helpful. I do have the farm background, so that has helped. But I went to Michigan State and I studied animal science and agribusiness management. So I do not have a communications background. And so honestly, in this role, it's been learning by doing and just asking for help and saying, I try to keep the mindset of how can I do better with each project? Because if I'm not continuously learning and improving, then what am I doing? So that has been really helpful. And then just staying involved in the industry. So by going to conferences, connecting, networking, and then just always asking for help. I think one thing that I never get tired of learning is just asking somebody for help or just talking to them about what they do, like exactly something like this is, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Or I never would have thought about stepping outside of my comfort zone and putting myself in someone else's shoes to think, oh, like that way can work as well. So yeah, I think no matter what you decide to do, and you get in it and then you're like, okay, this is not what I thought it was. Don't ever not let yourself try for something else, because we're each so capable of so much, and you can always learn new things. You don't have to have a special title or the prior education. You can always learn as you go, and people are going to be willing to help you.
So my education is not formal. I'm a little bit different. I always had an entrepreneur mindset right from high school. In high school, I owned a screen printing business and sold that and managed a company right out of high school in graphics. I had a semester in college in some business management stuff. But mine has mainly been just working your hardest and working through it. A lot of self-taught. Before I started the business, the other company I was with, it was my responsibility to take what we were doing traditionally with graphics and hand drawing to everything into electronics, so Photoshop, Illustrator, all the graphics applications, and making that successful. So it's more just thousands of hours of hands-on type of training, and always being willing to learn something new. And things change rapidly. And I think Aaron was saying, geez, I wish it would stop upgrading software, because what it did 10 years ago, I'm still doing the same thing with. But you have to constantly educate yourself and work hard. I will say a lot of the people that work for me do have degrees, and those are in graphic design. A lot of our fabricators, metal workers, some of those did go to college, but a lot of them are just super talented, hardworking type of people. And, that makes up probably the majority. I do have a social media person that went to Hillsdale, and content creator. And, so it's probably in our group, it's about half and half that have formal education. And of course, the president of the company does not have formal education, but, we don't hire people, we don't judge on what they're educated. We look at mainly their attitude first and what type of work ethic they have. We have a very rigorous hiring process too, I would say. And so for me, it's been on the job type of experience, learning the hard way. Probably not the easy way, but learning the hard way. And so that's my education. I keep telling my mom that I'm going back to college one of these days. We'll see.
There you go. I love it. No, I love that. Thank you guys for sharing that. Curious, as we're talking about how you got here into these positions, and helping our students, and we've said it in many of our conversations on helping students have an eyes wide open perspective of they love this is their interest, they're passionate about it, but there's also always, I think, Mike, you commented on taxes and paper, the paperwork part, and you just want to be creative. And so curious on, what are those eyes wide open types of situations that you have in your careers, or that you see in your area, that students just need to be aware of, whether it's just working, like you had said, Aaron, you noticed that being a DJ, the hours were crazy. And so just knowing that was a good learning experience to shift a little. So curious if you can share what the big picture, what the full picture is really when we're looking in your careers on those things you want to make sure they know.
For mine, there are some crazy hours with video. Like I said, you cater yourself to the farmer and when you can get out there, or the client. We don't always necessarily work with farmers. We work with Pioneer Seed. We work with MSU Extension, things like that as well. But there's times there's projects that you're not really excited for. that a lot of times we do video projects where video is given to us that we didn't shoot, and you're looking at it like, oh, that's not how I would have shot that. So, or it's on a phone and they're shooting vertical video. We all know that. So there's things that we get from outsourced that come to us that we have to put together and create a video that we're not super passionate about because we didn't put our heart and soul into it. But when we give it to them, they're happy about it. So that's, that's really all that matters to us. So I guess my advice would be, not every project you're going to work on is something that you get super excited for and you get to have total control over and create this masterpiece. A lot of times stuff is coming to you and saying, this is how we want it, even though you as a professional say this probably isn't the right way to doing it, but that's what they want. So you go along with it and you make the client happy.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Bridget, what about in your career area?
Yeah, so I really like what Aaron just said. There are things that you're going to be like, what? Why are we doing this? Just smile and do it anyways because it's the right thing to do. Remember, for me, I always try to remember if I'm frustrated with a project, it's like, okay, I'm doing this for Michigan's dairy farmers. That helps me stay motivated. But I think the two biggest things that I wish I would have known going in, and maybe I was pretty naive, starting out of college 5 years ago, but knowing, and it just takes practice, but how to have difficult conversations. So it doesn't matter what you're going to do, it's going to happen. And so just remembering to take a deep breath and, think of how they're thinking of the situation. And yeah, it gets kind of easier. Not really. Each conversation is going to be different, but that's one. And then another thing that I personally struggle with, and I have to kick myself in gear, is, each company probably has a different process for paperwork or for just following for programs. And so I am very much so a big picture person. And I don't necessarily like all the details. I just want to work and do it and get it done. And so I have to remind myself to stop and slow down and think about, all the fun details. So those are my two big things.
Great. Cool. Thank you for sharing those. I think they're very two that I also have to struggle with. So thank you. And Mike, what about in your area?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that a little bit too. I think Aaron was good in saying that, especially in the creative world, you just think everything is just all great all the time, or, that's a perception of it. I think everything's all pretty and, you don't have any issues. I mean, every project has some sort of issues that you have to deal with, whether it's, I personally have designed what I have thought some of my best stuff ever to have a client say, it's not what I'm thinking. I'm like, what? How could you not like that? That's my best stuff ever. And so, and I think as the years go on, that criticism or the constructive criticism, it really, now it doesn't bother me at all. But, being able to take that constructive criticism, listen to your clients and, do the right thing in the end. But, and everything changes. We kind of have a saying internally that we use, in sales, we can't wait to get the project. We get it. We're halfway through. We can't wait for it to be done. When it's done, we never want to see it again. So, but yeah, there's always challenges, in our field. It might be in our world, we're inventing something a lot of times for the first time. So our prototype has to be the end product. And so you're always challenged with things that you could never possibly think of in the beginning of a project. And then, so you're in the middle of it having to come up with solutions, and sometimes that can be stressful and whatnot. On the business side of things, on the accounting, you're always dealing with payables and getting people to pay, and sometimes when you deal with the larger corporations, and I think Bridget hit on a little bit all the details of the I's being dotted and the T's crossed, and you have to do those things, and being a creative minded person, it's hard to deal with sometimes. You just want to do it. Can't we just shake hands and get on with it? But you have to do your due diligence and put in all the details and everything. But yeah, that's what I'll say about that. There's always challenges along the way. You have to be a solutions provider.
Great. Thanks, guys, for giving that insight. I think it's super important, from the standpoint of we just want to get in and love everything about our job, and we've got to find the job that we love everything about, and that's just not the case. We can love our job, but then there's still parts, no matter what job, even if it's the best job in the world, that you still have to take in and just do, check it off the to-do list. So as a student who's sitting here and going, this sounds like the path, what would be some hobbies that they might be interested in or want to try out, or organizations they might want to check into? Just things that I know we've talked a little bit about classes that they could take at the high school or at the college level, but what are those kind of personal interests or extracurricular activities that students either could try, or maybe they're already trying and they're like, oh, this is how all of this could connect in my career path? Aaron, what would be some suggestions from you?
Well, nowadays we all have cameras on our phones, so everyone has access to a camera. So, I mean, I remember as a kid, we had an old camera and just making little movies with my brothers and stuff. So I feel like if you can't afford maybe a nicer camera, down in price, use your iPhone or use your Android or whatever. There's a lot of free editing programs out there that you can use to edit right within your phone, or there's paid ones that are under $20. And just be creative and have fun. And I'm sure there's probably communities that have classes as well, like free classes that you can join and take those up too. But I think a lot of it's just getting out there with your friends and creating magic with your phone. I mean, it's the way to do it nowadays.
Great, thank you. And Bridget.
So I think for promotion, really, you could do that on your own. So that can be on your own social media, digging in and sharing about, either if you're from a farm or even if you're not, just talking about why you love milk or why you love pigs. Starting that way, it doesn't have to be complicated, and it can just be simple and fun. But some different organizations, I think, definitely to get into, 4-H is a great one. If you're not a part of that, you learn so much. There's so many different programs. It's not just about animals. And then college age students getting involved in young farmers, Michigan Young Farmers. You're going to grow so much as a leader and as a person. In the networking, honestly, you can't get better than that. I think one thing that has absolutely helped me throughout my career is just knowing people, and just knowing somebody that they might be on the other side of the state from me, but I can call them and say, okay, I have this idea. What do you think of this? Is this crazy? Would you benefit, could you benefit from this? Or just talking to them about it. That's huge. So, I just want to encourage everybody to, whatever your dream is, your passion is just stay focused on it and do a little at a time. Don't get overwhelmed if it doesn't work out the first time you do an event, or find someone as a mentor in your area that does what you like to do, and follow them around for a few days, and I'm sure they'd be happy to help.
Great, thanks, Bridget. And Mike.
Yeah, that was really good advice at the end there. I always encourage young people to, you might not get paid for it, but go on the job and get some experience and find out if it's something that you even, after a few days, you might have an idea like, oh, that's not what I thought it was. And, there's a lot of businesses out there that are willing to do that. We do it all the time. Some of the hobbies and things, at least within our company, some of the designers like hands-on art type of things. If you're passionate about some of that, those types of things help. I have a very diverse team of people that are super talented with their hands. And it might be woodworking and that sort of thing. It might be metalworking. And I find that a lot of my designers are still designing outside of the office, doing stuff. We recently just had people send in pictures and whatnot of what they're doing in their spare time, and it's been very interesting. A lot of people, just how awesome they are at remodeling, or, things that they're designing for family and whatnot. So, you just find what you're passionate about. You might not know that right away. So it's good to get the experience, call a business and find out if they're willing to just let you observe for a few days. Then you can see kind of the grind that happens in some of these businesses to find out if it's something that you might be interested in. Would be probably the biggest advice. And like I say, that pays off more than, the amount of money that you would receive. So, be willing to put in the work to find out, what you're really passionate about.
I'm muting and unmuting here. There we go. And kind of, you all kind of touched on my next question, and just kind of giving that one piece of advice that you would give somebody who is looking down this career path. And so, all the advice that you gave is great for, in general, just as you are taking that next step on the career path. But when we're looking specifically at the Be the Story, and that to be the communicator or the designer, or to just help somebody tell their story, what would be your number one piece of advice that you would give them as they are looking down this particular career path?
I'm going to kind of follow Bridget and Mike. I know they mentioned it, but just getting to know people. With my wedding business, I've had people that have never shot anything really before, and they've tagged along, and majority of them saying, this isn't for me, because maybe the wedding business isn't for them. But with ag, I mean, we've had interns come along with us. We've had people ride along with us. I think just getting out in the field and seeing the whole process. Sometimes you're on the road for 2 or 3 hours heading up to the Traverse City, or we've been up to UP before. You have to take those things into consideration. But I think just ride-alongs and just people really grilling you with questions that's interested. I think just being honest.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. Bridget?
Yeah, so a couple things. I would absolutely encourage people, if they are wanting to do something similar to my role, is take a communication training. That's one thing that I get to help do, and how do you answer hard questions on social media, and just ag questions in general. I know Amelia does a really great training, and that's available through Farm Bureau, but that would just give you kind of a general overview of, just a small portion of what we do in promotion roles. But there's always going to be someone that is going to teach about how to have those conversations and kind of have an idea of what consumers are asking and what they want to know about agriculture. And then I guess my other piece is internships. So, I mean, it's kind of the same as ride-alongs, but, especially when you get to college, just apply for internships. Even if you're like, I kind of think that sounds fun, but I'm not 100% sure, apply for it. Because the worst thing that's going to come out of it is, at the end of the summer, you're going to be like, that was awful, and I never want to do that again. But that's the perk. So then when you are done with school or done with your program, you know exactly, I don't want to do that, but I like these two things instead. And so you can pursue those. So, internships are great for that. And again, for networking.
Great advice. Thank you. And Mike.
Yeah, and I don't want this to sound so general, but you have to work hard. And then when you think you're working hard, push a little bit more. It's probably my one biggest piece of advice is put in the extras, do a little bit more than the next person. I can tell you that people in our company that do that move up a lot quicker. When they make my life easier, then, it goes recognized. I think a lot of people think that it doesn't, but I don't know if anyone knows Troy Bancroft from Agro Liquid Fertilizer. But I always try to pick his brain. I want this golden answer to, what advice he would give. And I usually always hear general, like, just keep working hard, save your money, just like things. But if you really dig deep into those answers, it just, it does make a lot of sense. And, there's been times even in that case where I've seen Troy, as successful as their company is, he's still there at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, making things. He's passionate about it, And so I think it's working hard. And then, when you think you've put in everything, take one more step and give it a little more oomph. So, and that's probably the entrepreneur side of me that comes out, but yeah, you have to work hard. Love what you do, for sure. That would be the next thing. There's nothing worse than walking into work dreading going into the building, And I have talks with my team about that. I said, if you find yourself dreading coming in here, let me know. I don't want that.
No, I mean, nobody wants, you put lots of time and energy and it's your passion, and you don't want to kill your passion from that. So I think all great advice, guys. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Just a little insight. I always say it would be awesome to spend just a whole day with you to do those ride-alongs, to get to know a little bit more about what you do, or just even an hour in to some questions to help students really see that there's just an array of opportunity for them in agriculture, whether they were raised in ag, whether they had really, had no idea they would be in agriculture, and yet here a couple of you are just killing it and being able to do your, follow through on your passions and tell that story for people. That's super important. So again, just want to say thank you guys for being here on the panel today. For those of you that are watching, we really hope that you check out all of our videos that you'll see below if you're watching this on YouTube, on the Michigan Farm Bureau YouTube page, or you can go to our Michigan Ag in the Classroom page with a variety of different resources all about ag careers, and those links are down below as well. So again, thanks for being with us. If this was a career path that you want to take your next steps on and have more questions, please let us know. And if you need to check out a couple other panels, I hope that you click those links and listen in on those industry professionals. So thanks so much for being here with us today. And guys, as panelists, thank you very much for taking the time.